And am I? Let me just. Can you make me co-host, please, Waleed? Be brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Marvelous. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to World Storytelling Cafe and Assembled Company, obviously. Um, Today is Friday, so it's stories for children. And our storyteller for tonight is Bob Kanegis, who really thought he was on next week, and it was probably my fault. I tend to make the odd uh, sort of mistake, and so I will take full responsibility for this. Michael Currens, of course, is on next week. Bob is just getting back to us.
Sorry, everybody, I'm having
He has a black screen.
computer problems. Hang on 1 minute here.
That's okay. I'll keep rattling on until such times as you're ready.
Okay.
The important thing from the point of view is Sunday, 6 o'clock. We have we're getting together the first of our bi-weekly for this year world storytelling rounds, worldwide storytelling rounds. So anyone who wants to come in on Sunday on this platform and tell a story, Mike Rust, who I was with earlier today, will be hosting that. Now, Bob, has your internet settled down?
I think I'm about ready to join you. Okay, all right.
Yeah, there you are. So you're in the center. That's very. I do like the blue. I'm so yes. How's Liz? Did you manage to get a coffee to her while it was still hot?
Yeah, I was saved by the bell. Thank you, John.
Well, these things are important. To not get the coffee to the person who's ordered it is so important, and to be talking as storytellers do for hours while the coffee chills is probably ideologically unsound. But for now, we have with us Waleed in Morocco, Michael. I have no idea where he is. Where are you sitting, Michael? In which particular geographical area?
I am on Whidbey Island in Washington State in the U.S. Pacific Northwest.
Perfect. You're probably a first person we've seen on screen from Washington State. So welcome. Despina, who's sitting in Greece, and of course on an island, obviously, because Greece is made up of just islands, and each one with its own stories. And Donald, who's sitting up in up north, next to a lock, just north of Glasgow. And of course
the bonny banks of Loch Lomond.
Loch Lomond of the song, yes.
Hello, Donald.
And Louis, King Louis, your
King Louis, good to see you. Hi.
King Louis, who's sitting on the edge of the fence up in Stamford, in the UK. So we have a truly international audience. Well, of course, loads of people will be talking on Facebook or watching on Facebook or YouTube or some other platform. But here in our Zoom room, we have an international audience. And from New Mexico, or sitting in New Mexico, not starting his journey there, but sitting in New Mexico and has sat there for as long as I've known him, which is, which has probably been a virtual relationship that's been going on probably nearly about 25 years now, is my old friend Bob Kanegis, who is our tonight storyteller. So please, I hand the floor to you, or the lens, or whatever it is.
All right, John. Whatever you handed me, I'll take it. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. It was a little bit of a surprise when I woke up this morning. I thought I'd be with you next week, but here I am. So I was trying to think real quickly about what stories I might tell. A few days ago, I was with another group of storytellers from all around the country telling stories about Alaska. I didn't have time to tell the one that I was planning, so I may tell that one to you today. And since I'm on the Alaska theme, I'm going to tell you a story about the sandhill cranes. I've got a sandhill crane feather here in my hand. And sandhill cranes are these huge migratory birds that spend their summers, at least here in the States, up in the Northwest and Wyoming and as far as Alaska and the banks of the Yukon and Kuskokwim rivers where I first saw them. So I'm going to tell a story that comes from that part of the world. It's a Yupik story. And I think that to do this, and this, I don't usually use screen sharing, but I'm gonna put something on my virtual background for this story. Let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Here. So I'll give you a sense of what the sandhill cranes look like. No, that's not it. Excuse me. Again, forgive me, this is all short notice. There we go. All right. I'll use that. Okay, so the sandhill cranes are these huge migratory birds. Their wingspan is as much as 6 feet. So the birds, and I heard them right out my kitchen window this morning, down by the river. And we have huge flocks, hundreds, thousands of them a little further south on the Rio Grande River. So it's something that we really look forward to every winter, late autumn when they arrive, and then we say goodbye to them in February as they start their migrations northwards. So as I mentioned, some of the sandhill cranes come all the way from Alaska down here to the Rio Grande Valley in New Mexico. Years and years ago, when I was traveling in Alaska, I was in the Yupik villages where they tell the story, or their version of the story that I'm going to share now. So, once upon a time, there was a sandhill crane on the banks of the Yukon River that woke up hungry. And she knew where there was a really good berry picking place, right close to the banks of the river, but a little further upstream. So she stretched those long, long legs of hers. She opened up her enormous wings, stretched her neck, and up she flew. She circled the river a few times and then landed right near that great berry picking patch. She could hardly wait to taste these juicy, sweet berries. It was late summer. All the different berries were becoming ripe. Suddenly, Crane thought, there's a little bit of a problem. Because if I, or if any of us, stoop real low and look real carefully to find those berries, you can't see what's behind you, right? You only see what's right up in front of your face. And Crane thought, what if a hunter was sneaking up on me? What if a fox came? What can I do? And then, she had a brilliant idea. She thought, I know what I'll do. I'll take my eyes out, set them on a stump, and they can look out for me. They can look all around while I'm busy picking the berries. So that's what she did. She plucked out her 2 eyes, placed them on a stump, and instructed them. Eyes, you watch out for me now. If you see any danger coming, call me, and I'll come running back and we'll fly away. Yes, master. Yes, Master Crane. We will look out for you and call if there is danger, said the eyes. So Crane hopped up, spread her wings a little bit. I'll see if I can do that crane call. A little bit like that. You can try that. I don't know how that's coming through Zoom, but she called. Let me hear that. Unmute yourself for a minute. You see, we can turn yourself. All right, well, that'll do. That's not what I heard out my window this morning, but you're all trying. Thank you very much. Well, she called a couple of times. She spread her wings and she landed. Oh, she found a patch of crowberries. Now in Alaska, in the muskeg, crowberries are small, round, little black berries, oh, the size of a pea or so, and they're not that great for humans, but the birds love them. Oh, she was feasting and feasting on those berries. Meanwhile, the eyes were looking around for danger. They got bored. One of them said, there's nothing to do. There's no danger here. Let's play a trick on Crane. Let's call danger. And they did. Master, master, come quickly. Danger. Crane walked back to where she had left the eyes. Put them back in. Looked all around. What was it? What was it? All she saw was just a little leaf floating down the river. Oh, she'd been enjoying those berries so much. She was really upset. Hey, you think that was funny? That wasn't funny. What did I tell you? Just call me if there's danger. Not funny. Just call me if all right. We'll only call you if there's danger. Well, Crane walked took out her eyes again, left them to look around, felt her way to where she knew there were some ripe low bush cranberries. Oh, they're tart and sweet at the same time. They're delicious. I've made low bush cranberry jam that is absolutely delicious. Mike, who's listening in here, he's been up in Alaska. Mike, you probably had some of that high bush or low bush cranberry jam, right? Sure you did. Just nod your head. No, it's okay. Yeah, see, thank you. When I tell that next Alaska story, I'm going to be checking with Mike too, because he can attest to everything that I'm saying here. He's been through it all. So now, Crane was enjoying those low bush cranberries. Oh, the cranberry juice was running down her bill. It was even staining her feathers a little bit, the ones right around her neck. The eyes were looking out. Let's do it again. No, no, no. Crane will get angry at us. No, no, no. We have to be. Come on, it was fun. All right. Danger! Crane came walking back as fast as she could. She put her eyes in, she looked all around, and all she could see were the leaves of the small little willow bushes blowing in the wind. And oh, she was really upset this time. You can imagine she'd been enjoying that berry feast so much. I can't even tell you the words that she used to scold her eyes. And they were duly chagrined. Well, we won't do it again. We won't do it again. Crane took off in the direction of what she knew were her favorite berries, the blueberries. Oh, the Yupik people literally picked barrels of berries in the fall. There are so many berries out on the tundra. Crane was having a wonderful, wonderful time eating those berries when suddenly the eyes saw real danger. Oh, yes. An Arctic fox was walking towards them. The fox had seen those eyes. The fox was thinking, juicy eyeballs, good to eat. Juicy eyeballs, good to eat. The eyes called out, "Danger! Come quickly, Crane!" But Crane was not going to be tricked one more time. She just kept enjoying those blueberries, and you can imagine what happened next. A wonderful, juicy eyeball feast for that Arctic fox. Well, eventually, Crane was full with berries. She walked back and she felt around for her eyes. My eyes! My eyes! Where are my eyes? And after a time, she realized that her eyes were gone. I don't think she knew quite what happened to them, but she knew she had lost her eyes. I need the ones. I've got to do something. Wait a minute, let me feel around. She put 2 crowberries in her eyes. And she looked around. Oh, that's not right. It's dark. Everything is almost black. These eyes, these are not good eyes. And she ate them. She felt around a little bit more. Ah. She put 2, you know what's coming next, right? Cranberries in her eyes. She looked around. She goes, that's weird. The sky is red. The river is red. This is not right. Don't waste food, kids. I need some berries. Let me see. Oh. What did she put in her eyes next? Yes, I can't hear you because you're properly muted, but blueberries. She put blueberries in her eyes. Ooh, this is kind of nice, she thought. Look, the sky is blue. The river is blue. Ooh, even those kids picking berries over there, they're blue too. I like these eyes. I think I'll keep them. And she did. And the Yupik people say that if you ever see a crane with blue eyes, you will know that that is the crane from this story. Thank you. So, isn't it interesting? I'm sure that some of you are thinking that story reminds me of a story from a completely different part of the world, right? Yeah, anybody want to shout it out? Unmute yourself if you're in the room.
Wolf, wolf.
Well, it's interesting how stories travel. The boy who cried wolf, yeah.
Louis, you were about to shout something. What were you about to say, Louis? You're muted. You're muted.
The boy who said it, the wolf.
Yes, Louis, that you're absolutely right. That's the story. Well, so this is, this is why it's really important. I feel like I need to do a little ethical, moral education here. This is why it's so important to be truthful all of the time. And so I told you I was going to tell another story from Alaska, and actually that there's someone in the room, Michael there in Sarafanoff on Whidbey Island right now, who has been with me in Alaska, and he can attest. He knows Michael knows my life story more than just about anybody. So you just look, if you have any doubts about what I'm about to tell you, you just look at Michael on the screen, and he'll be nodding, yeah, I'm sure he will. And this is the story. Now, on the World Storytelling Cafe, we don't often tell personal stories, but I'm going to make an exception today, and I'm going to tell a story about my time in Alaska. The reason I'm going to tell this story is that Alaska is a beautiful, wild, rugged place, but it can also be really dangerous. People lose their lives with accidents, weather, all kinds of things. Just bears. It's a dangerous place to be. I had a close brush with death in Alaska, and as it turned out, it was storytelling that saved my life. Storytelling actually saved my life. And so I was thinking, well, yeah, that personal story, okay, but if this story is not going to make me look very good, actually, this story is going to show. Well, I'll just say it doesn't. I don't show up well in this story, but I was thinking that if by sharing my story, I could save one other life, a life of a listener who will tune in and pay attention, because this could actually save. This is how storytelling could save your life. Okay, so I think that's why I'm going to make an exception this time. Now, it's winter here. We've had a cold snap. I've been outside. We have a little fire pit in our backyard here in New Mexico, and I like to build little backyard fires. Well, some of my friends, people like Michael, who know me for a long time, know that I have a nickname. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this with a screen share, but it's a match. Some of my friends know me as One Match. How did I get that name, One Match? Well, it turns out that going all the way back to Boy Scout years, and I take a lot of pride in this. I know how to build a fire. I can build a campfire in a howling gale, with snow swirling all around, with damp wood. I have learned to just be. I'll say it. I'll say it. But I'm a master fire builder, and so to show my own confidence in myself, when I go camping, I keep my matches waterproof. I keep my match waterproof because I don't carry matches when I go camping. I carry one match because I know that I will never fail to start my fire with one match. So that's a little background. Now, many years later, I made my way to Alaska, and I could tell Alaska stories for a long, long time. But I made my way to the little town of Homer, Alaska, the most beautiful place on earth I have ever been. And there, I met an old sourdough. You know what a sourdough is, right? Sourdough is just a sort of an old timer who just knows the ropes, knows their way around, is a master woods person, has survival skills. If anybody was an old sourdough, it was Poop Deck. And when I first went up there, I was what's known as a chichaco. That's the opposite of a sourdough. That's a greenhorn. But after a few years, I was adapting well to the Alaska lifestyle. I learned a lot from Poop Deck. One of the things that Poop Deck said in one conversation, it must have been, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I guess we were talking about the outdoors and camping. And he said, Bob, because Poop Deck would go camping a lot, usually on a moose hunting trip or something like that. Well, Poop Deck said, Bob, there's three things you certainly need to know when you're camping in Alaska. One is always tell somebody that you're going and where you're going. Your survival could depend on that. He says he says, bring plenty of matches and keep them dry, and be really careful. Just look around, look at everything when you make camp, so that you make camp in a proper place. So somewhere along the line, I had incorporated that wisdom from Poop Deck. I knew most of that. I really knew most of that from my Boy Scout days. Well, at the end of the commercial salmon fish season that year, it was late September now. I woke up in my cabin one day and I looked out over Kachmak Bay. Now, Homer, Alaska sits on Kachmak Bay. It's the most beautiful place. There are glaciers hanging in the mountains across 7 miles across the bay. There are active volcanoes. There are orca whales. There are eagles flying over. It's an amazing place. I woke up one morning, the bay was as flat as a mirror. And I thought this would be a really, really great day to kayak across Kachemak Bay to Glacier Spit. This is where there's a little 2-mile trail that goes up to one of those hanging glaciers that I mentioned. It's fantastic. So this was kind of a spur of the moment thing. And I had an inflatable kayak at the time. And I went down to the harbor. I got, it was going to be a day trip. And I paddled across. It was a beautiful, beautiful paddle. As I mentioned, there are orcas that you can find in Kachemak Bay. I heard them. They're blowing air. I watched eagles flying over, and I made my way. It's about 5 or 6 miles across the bay. It was flat. It was just as flat, calm as it possibly could be. Glorious, glorious fall day. I beached the kayak at Glacier Point. I started up the trail, and I picked berries along the way. I picked some of those low bush berries along the way, and blueberries. It was wonderful. And I made my way up to the glacier. That glacier, by the way, has retreated miles and miles and miles since I was first there 40 years ago, and that's the truth. I mean, you've got to hike further back to get to the actual edge of the glacier. Well, I made my way up there. The sun was shining. I had plenty of time. I found a nice soft spot in the moss to lie down. I had a copy of Jack London's short stories in my back pocket. I read one of the stories. I think I dozed off a little bit for a moment or two, 10, 15 minutes. But when I woke up, I could feel this chill wind blowing off the glacier. I mean, it just, at 10 knots, wind blowing over the glacier is icy. And all of a sudden that wind was blowing at more than 10 knots. And I realized I needed to get down the trail and paddle back while there was still daylight and before the winds came up too much. So I made my way back down the trail a lot faster than I went down. When I got to the bay, actually, even before I got to the bay, when I got to an overlook, I could see Kachemak Bay was whipped into a frenzy of whitecaps. An afternoon squall had come up. I got down to the beach. There was no way that I was possibly going to be able to make it back that night. Well, I hadn't planned on a camping trip, but I told you, I wasn't a chichaco anymore. I knew my way around the woods, and I always travel with my one match, and I knew I was going to be able to get a fire started. So I made a little camp. I had my buck knife with me. I cut some spruce branches. I made a little lean-to. I didn't have a sleeping bag, but I built a big fire. In Kachemak Bay, you have to be an idiot to starve to death. There were mussels all over the edge of the bay on the rocks at low tide. I picked myself and I started wind blowing the way it was. I started my fire with one match. That wasn't a problem at all. I had my fire. I had a dinner of mussels. I cooked them on hot rocks. I had entertainment. I had my book of Jack London stories with me. And I settled in for the night, feeling pretty darn proud of myself. Pretty darn proud of myself. I said, okay, well, this is not the way I planned to spend the night, but I'm going to be okay. Well, in the middle of the night, I was having a terrible dream. I was actually dreaming that one of those huge Alaska mosquitoes had pretty much sucked me dry. Now, you've all heard stories of Alaska mosquitoes, and you think that that's probably not true, that those mosquitoes aren't that big. This is a little visual aid. I should get off. Hold on. I think what I'm going to do, just forgive me for a moment. I'm going to change back so that you can see what I'm going to show you without this flickering screen, because I want you to see and be sure that you understand that let me go to no background. If I can. Sorry to interrupt here, but we'll go back to no background. Okay. So in case you don't believe that the mosquitoes are big enough to suck you dry in Alaska, and I told everybody here that sticking to the truth. You heard that last story. It's important. Can you read this? Or is it reversed? This is an official Alaska mosquito trap. Okay. And I set my traps, only this is a small one. My traps were a lot larger than that. Anyway, I was dreaming about one of these big mosquitoes sucking me dry. I woke up in the middle of the night, and by golly, there was a quarter of an inch of snow on the ground. That chill wind had brought a change in the weather. Well, I managed to get back to sleep. The fire was still burning, and then all of a sudden, I was awakened from my sleep again by the sound of a crack. And that crack. But while I was sleeping, that snow began to fall harder and harder and harder. There was probably a good 8 or 9 inches of snow on the ground and 8 or 9 inches of wet snow on that spruce tree that was hanging over the fire that I had built. I had made a Chichaco's mistake, and I hadn't listened to Poop Deck. I was not careful enough. I told you this does not make me look very good. I had not chosen my camp wisely. And that heavy snow broke this big limb of this Sitka spruce, and it came crashing down, and it put my fire out. And now I was, as they say, in extremis. It was in the middle of the night with that wind blowing, still snowing, and I thought, this is hypothermia weather. But I had been observant enough when I was setting up my camp to notice, not too far from where I had set up my little lean-to, a big old Sitka spruce tree that had fallen years ago and was hollowed out. It was sitting on the ground, and it was the proverbial hollow log. And I realized that this log was big enough for me to literally crawl into and at least get out of the wind and prevent myself from getting hypothermia that night without a fire. And so that's what I did. Now, I know you're all thinking, right, there was a bear in there. I'm going to tell you a story about how there was a bear in there wasn't a bear in the log. No, there was not a bear in the log. But just to be careful, I went in feet first, so my head was sort of sticking out. I could see out, but as soon as I got in there, what body warmth I had filled that cavity, and by golly, I made it through the night. I made it through that night, resourceful as I was. And in the morning, I definitely slept. I probably slept till 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. I was exhausted from the hike the other morning and the previous day and the paddle. And I looked out and I could see the bay. It was flat as a mirror. And I was going to be able to get back across without a problem. And I could even see the blue sky. So I made my way out of the log. I tried to make my way out of the log. Some of you, is anybody there did like really well in physics who has never really been able to quite explain this? But there was something about the temperature change, the inside, the outside, my heat, the rapid warming in the morning. The inside of that Sitka spruce log had expanded, or actually what had expanded, but the space between me and that log had contracted, and I was stuck. I couldn't go forward and I couldn't go backwards. I could not get out of that log. I was pinned in that log. I was trapped like a skeeter in a skeeter trap. And then I realized that there was something else I hadn't done. Another piece of Poop Deck's advice that I hadn't listened to. I hadn't told anybody where I was going. I hadn't even told my friend Mike. Nobody knew that I was there. Nobody knew that I had gone across the bay. And no one was going to be looking for me. And no one was going to find me. And I was going to spend my last living hours stuck in that log. And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that, where you just looked at inevitable death in the face. And I don't think my situation is unique. I've heard other people talk about, death or near-death experiences where your whole life begins to go like a reel in front of you. Well, that's what started to happen with me, and it actually was almost a conscious thing because, it was going to take a while to freeze to death on that log, but after I calmed down enough, I started to review my life. And, I started to think about, well, honestly, of course, I thought about all the people that I loved and the people that would miss me and the people that I would miss. And then I started to think about what kind of life I had lived. And, honestly, I began to think I'd lived a pretty good life. I'd lived an ethical life, a moral life. I had done good. I was the kid, going back to Boy Scout days, that helped little old ladies across the street. I mean, I was always ready, still am, to help friends and strangers. And, I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then after a while, I thought, this is not right. If I'm going to do this, I got to do it right. I got to think about the unexemplary things, the things that I was ashamed of, or maybe just felt mildly uncomfortable about. So I started that process. The thing is, I could not think of I could not think of one single thing that I could even be mildly ashamed of. Nothing. I had lived such an exemplary life that I could not think of one thing that I would have ever done differently at all. Not one. And it still didn't feel right. So I kept trying. And then suddenly, I realized, I thought of something. Mike, now you remember this. I know you do. So I went up to Alaska a year before Mike, and I was telling Mike about this. I was remembering having told Mike about arriving in Ketchikan, Alaska, with $10 in my pocket in the middle of the winter. And the fact is, and I can tell you this now, Mike, I didn't arrive with $10 in my pocket in the middle of the winter. I had arrived with $12 in my pocket in the middle of the winter. And telling that story to Mike, I had stretched the truth. I had stretched the truth, my friends. And when I thought about that, when I really thought about what a dastardly deed that was, it just kind of made me feel small. And I just shrunk down a little bit. And I just shrunk down a little bit. And I just shrunk down just enough so that I was able to free myself from the prison of that log and be here to tell you this story today. And that, my friends, is how storytelling saved my life. And I think those are my stories for today.
Oh, Bob, that was amazing. I love that story. Love that story. And, considering you got hold of me just a few hours ago and said, this is all a bit of a surprise. Don't think I'm telling tonight. I didn't. No, it's been a brilliant night. Thank you. A round of applause for Bob Kanegis.
Well, really good to
mosquitoes. I know about those mosquitoes. They have similar mosquitoes in Scandinavia up near the Arctic, and summertime in the Arctic, the north of the Arctic Circle is these.
Yeah.
I remember traveling around with a little sort of two-pole tent, and these mosquitoes they'd bite you, and you'd see them, and they went transparent, and they were just full of blood, and you knew it was your blood. You burst them on the side of the tent. My tent was stained with my own blood by the time I'd slept in the woods in the Arctic for too long. So I know you're telling the truth.
Well, John, I'm sure that was a harrowing experience, but I'm just going to tell you that, trying to tell a mosquito story and talking about mosquitoes that are worse than Alaska is really few. I was living in Fairbanks when a mosquito landed at the county airport, and they changed the spark plugs and filled it up with gas before they realized what it was.
Right.
Yeah, I bet they're not as bad as the Scottish midges.
Well,
The Scottish midges, they are so small they're almost invisible, but they can bite. Believe it, and they come in their hundreds of thousands. There's no fun at all.
Yeah, there's something here in New Mexico called white socks that are tiny, and they fly off with little pieces of your flesh dangling from their jaws. Well, luckily we've all been bit by the storytelling bug.
Well, there's in Iceland, there's a beautiful lake, and you look on the map and you look at pictures of it, and it's called Mývatn, and you think that's a gorgeous lake. I must visit it. So I did, without realizing the translation in England of Mývatn is Midge Lake.
It's what?
Midge Lake.
Oh, God.
Well, on that note, thank you, Bob. What have we got coming up? Well, Sunday, you're all invited to tell a story. Anyone who's listening is invited to tell the story. Same time, 6 o'clock, UK and Irish time. I won't bother to say what it is in US and Canada. We've had Canada join us since I started the program. Thank you. Hello, Norman. And 6 o'clock UK and Irish time, we have our worldwide story round. So everyone is invited to tell a story. The Spinner, we will see you there. We will see you there. And everyone else, and undoubtedly Donald and whoever turns up. Tuesday, of course, is our Young International Tellers. That's 2 hours earlier. That's 4 o'clock UK time, and that's any young teller and that's I try and be a young teller, but then although people tell me I should act my age occasionally, I can't get away with that. But any young teller, and we've got some amazing young tellers in India, in Italy, and or occasionally from Gaza, not at the moment, unfortunately, and Nigeria occasionally comes on. So that's a kind of worldwide thing, and then Friday, we haven't got back Kanegis as he thought, but he will be back. You will be back, Bob. Louis, Bob needs to come back, doesn't he? Louis. We having Bob back?
Of course we can.
Hey, thank you, King Louis.
So Bob will be back, and hopefully Liz will join him.
Yeah, she was planning to join me today. So if we reschedule sometime later this winter or spring, she'll be with us.
That would be great. And then but Friday next week is, as I say, it's not Bob, but as he thought, is Michael Currins, from fantastic storyteller from north of the border, from Scotland, who is always a joy. And so on, so on and so forth throughout the month. So thank you all for joining us. Anyone who's not joined us before, welcome. And Michael, we hope to see you at different times on this platform.
John, before you close for the day, I just wanted to let Donald know that I have heard a story about the Scottish midges in opera. There was an opera singer, a Scottish one, very famous, singing that, yeah, and it was wonderful. You look it up.
Was it? Oh, the midges and midges, I'm no gonna kidges.
Yes, it was that one.
That one,
yeah, but opera style.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know the whole song,
yeah.
Donald?
I do, yes.
Would you care to sing it?
Well, at the moment, no, because I don't have all the words in front of me.
Well, next time you're on, next time I see you, we want the whole song.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've not done a Friday for a long time, so.
Well, yeah, Fridays in February are free at the moment.
Okay.
So get
Story
hold of
rounds
me,
will
so
do.
message me and tell me which Friday you want.
Okay.
And if you
I've
want to sing earlier, story rounds will do.
Yeah.
I'll do it on Sunday.
You can sing it on Sunday.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be great.
Also,
and Bob,
John,
if you message me with when you would like to come on, and likewise anyone else on a Friday.
And John, about the people who tell you to act your age, those are horrible people. Pay no heed to them. Hang out with us instead.
I've never taken any advice from anybody, so there's no danger. Once more, round of applause, Bob Kanegis. And of course, our thanks to Waleed sitting in Marrakesh, who has been flying the magic carpet for us tonight. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Louis.
Bye.
Bye, Louis.
Bye.